How's it going?
No. I'm gonna start coughing it too because I have to watch the game.
Hi, America. Are you free tomorrow? At 1?
I have tons of meetings, but let's try.
Other questions? Sorry, no, totally shifting gears.
Just online ones in the morning.
Just all this stuff.
Yes, those are fun.
So I got a question from my friend.
Oh, about the business. I'm delighted.
He said that
Are you in this one?
they help in these fields in school.
I'm imagining.
Change.
I think it's the end of Canada.
Yeah.
We know to do the work.
1:30?
Sure, we have a letter. We can do that letter.
15? I have a meeting. You're just
Just tell me when you're
ends at 1, whenever it's 1, that's why I don't want you sitting. So I'll call you when I'm done. Let me put it in my calendar.
Because I'm like,
I know. And I know you can text me, but I forget to jump there that. Yeah, it's good. It's all good.
perfect, thank you.
Perfect. In my calendar. Are you? Yeah, if it's not in here, I'll
It's on my desk. And then
do
Side by side. With a hill and
Awesome, thank you.
That's the smallest one.
that's
Really easy going, yeah.
policies
And then cabinet and then
let them know that we need to just use language.
I'm not gonna talk about
Let them read it.
right? It's hard to jump
I
like.
got that.
because I want to grant and school and like April 30th. That's like priority right now. This month.
That's so out of context.
I did. I saw it earlier in the week. I couldn't do it like, I couldn't do it out of the job.
So she refers to them as Oliver's grand teacher.
That's great. And then I know it's all Steve's articles. Yeah. That's great.
Maybe slide.
Depends on like.
That could be the problem.
Lewis, it's like stoppage time in soccer. Yeah, it's on the end.
You could.
Yeah.
You work and maybe time later check caption.
Nope. Sam, I don't get what you're doing. She's been with the state for a while. She's moving tonight to personnel. Burnout. Meeting to order, if we could please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and excuse the delay. Welcome to the April 8th, 2024 business meeting of the Milford Board of Education. Ms. Griffin catches her breath. Can we have a roll call, please, for attendance?
Megan Doyle.
Here.
Scott Furmender.
Mr. Furmender is excused for work.
Tracy Irby. Here. Tom Kova.
Mr. Kova is on his honeymoon.
Lauren Mallard.
Here.
Luna Petrosky. Here. Christina Preet. Here. Michael Smith.
Here.
Cindy Wolf Boynton.
Ms. Wolf Boynton is ill.
And Susan Glennon.
Here.
7 members present.
Okay, we do have a quorum. We'll move on to student reports. I think Jonathan Law goes first tonight. Welcome.
Thank you and good evening, board members. It is a pleasure to be with you once again. I'll begin tonight with some law-amazing news. For our Key Club, it's currently gearing up for their second annual kickball tournament, April 14th, it's a Saturday. Students are signing up to face off with proceeds being donated to Camp Sunshine, which is an organization that helps support families with children who have life-threatening illnesses. The Key Club also recently attended the District Educational Conference this weekend, also known as DCON, meeting with other Key Club districts to discuss their impact throughout the school year. Congratulations to those who attended the conference, and also congratulations to Harshita Kokapalli, who was the new Lieutenant Governor for the district. In Science National Honor Society and Science Club, today the Science National Honor Society hosted a solar eclipse watch party to encourage students to watch the historical event with friends and safely. After school, they went outside to the football field and watched the sun from afar with their glasses. The Science Club is also getting ready for their state competition at UConn on April 20th, testing wooden structures and studying for their tests. Wish them luck. The National Honor Society is also currently fundraising and it's in full swing for the Brain Bowl, as the club plans to host a tournament for grades and faculty to go against each other and raise money for brain cancer research. They are urging people to donate to their teams so that they can start off with more points at the start of the game. The Brain Bowl, which is Hunger Games themed, is this Friday, so best of luck to the students competing. May the best grade or district win. In FBLA, which is the Future Business Leaders of America, they recently attended the Connecticut State competition, winning multiple medals, competing with other students across the state, so congrats to them. In Model UN, they recently attended the NHS Model UN conference in New York City, and one of their co-presidents, Molika Sibalenka, opened up the conference, and students were able to discuss with other delegates from around the world on current issues. And they also had a lot of fun exploring the city while learning from other students. In academics, in terms of world languages, this past month, world language teachers attended a full-day professional development workshop with a nationally acclaimed language teacher, where they learned specifically how to teach culture and current events through proficiency and acquisition lens. Students also have been discussing music in both Spanish and French classes during Mania Musica, which is Spanish, and Mania Musical, which is French. Similar to March Madness, basketball within the United States, participants try to predict which of the 16 songs will be the most popular in a bracket-style tournament. The use of music in language classrooms not only keeps classes lively, but also helps students learn about other cultures and bring understanding of copious perspectives of society. This helps to eliminate stereotypes or personal biases of different groups. In April, senior students in Spanish, French, and Latin will be taking proficiency exams that assess their ability to engage in linguistic tasks on the topic of personal, social, and academic relevance across the 3 modes of communication. In the teaching and learning commons, recruitment has begun for next year's student help desk. Ms. Mundy and Danny from IT want to help all AP Computer Science classes to talk about the program, and several students are interested and already applied. The TLC is also now offering space for clubs and events to make announcements about upcoming activities, making the TLC a great place to see what's happening in the school. The TLC is also sponsoring a bookmark making competition for School Library Month, and students can submit their design to Miss Mundy, and the law winner gets to go to a state competition. And true crime has also been a very popular genre lately, with lots of books being checked out after True Crime Book Talk.
In the English department, journalism classes recently worked on the Women's History Month project, revealing their female role model at law, mentioning everyone from students to our lunch lady Barb. They also worked on the segment We Have That Class for the JLHS Advocate social media, highlighting fun electives like forensics, medical mysteries, Black and Latino studies, and so much more for students to take during course selection season. In the music department, the law band, orchestra, and choir had an excellent experience on their trip to New Orleans. They were able to experience several musical, culinary, cultural, and historical aspects of New Orleans, exploring the French Quarter, and even going on a ghost tour around the city. At Loyola University in NOLA, students had the opportunity to perform in collaboration with professors and students, workshopping pieces learned before. They gained so much knowledge on the process and nuances of creating music. All around an extremely memorable experience for those lucky students. Also, huge congratulations to the 9 students who attended the CMEA All-State Honors Ensemble Festival this past weekend. Oliver Harrigan, Chris Rickard, Jasper Chu, Sarah Gutierrez, Lastia Pedalti, Angelina Robinson, Riza Reyes, and Ike. They worked so hard throughout the entire process of auditioning, rehearsing, and finally performing on Saturday. The elective fair, the entire school hosted an elective fair for the incoming class of 2028. 8th graders had the opportunity to get a preview at everything there is to law, learning about electives like culinary and computer science principles. Athletics and law sports action. Softball plays tonight at home versus Brantford at 5:30 p.m. They're off to a great start, their season record being 3-0. Outdoor track is in full swing, starting to compete. They are struggling a bit because we're fairly freshman sophomore heavy, but they're learning. Baseball has faced early struggles, facing crosstown rival Foreign and losing first game of the season and losing to Cheshire. They're still looking for a very strong season, and I'm excited to watch them play and win a state championship. A student from law, Kaden Simpson, also recently attended the New Balance National Championship, breaking her own 600 hurdle school record. Huge congrats to her. Also, congratulations to Law 2024 SEC Scholar Leaders Natalie Morell and JT Nelly. Their work within both academics and athletics is commendable. One last congrats to freshman Selena Beatriz, who made SEC's All-State Girls Wrestling, and sophomore Charlotte Balderi, who made All-State Girls Cheerleading. In schools counseling, college and career, the school counseling department is gearing up for AP testing coming month of May. And all the counselors are excited to share in the college acceptance process with our seniors. Congratulations to all. Thank you all for this opportunity to speak with you, and I look forward to the next meeting.
Thank you. Lauren?
Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone has a great past month and a safe solar eclipse day. First, I'd like to give a shout out to our very own Mr. Caesar, who was just awarded the Instructor Award for Excellence in Course Instruction for his dedication in teaching UConn's ECE, Early College Experience program, to the foreign students. Recently, students in Foreign's United States history class debated whether or not the U.S. should pursue a policy of nuclear disarmament. Students researched the bombing of Hiroshima, the Cuban Missile Crisis, and the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and then wrote speeches supporting or refuting the idea that we should disable our warheads. Judges analyzed the arguments presented to them to determine which group gave the best argument. Before spring break, Foreign's own Giving Table prepared 2 hearty chicken pot pies and a tossed salad for a Milford Public Schools family. Their teachers, Miss Randy and Mrs. Pongu, said it filled our hearts and the culinary room with love to make a difference with food, one meal at a time. The Giving Table also prepared big rigatoni and large tossed salad for the Milford Firehouse headquarters. A big shout out to our amazing Giving Table crew. Just 2 weeks ago, our Foreign High School band took a trip down to Washington, D.C. We had the pleasure of working with Dr. Greg Potter, the assistant band director at the University of Maryland, College Park. Throughout the 4 days, students were taken to many of the historical monuments around Washington, D.C., including the Lincoln Memorial, World War II Memorial, as well as the 9/11 Memorial at the U.S. Pentagon. Students also visited a plethora of different museums and saw the beautiful cherry blossoms almost at full bloom. All students had a blast. Thank you to Mrs. Turner and Mr. Stahman for taking us on this amazing trip. Recently, our 20 new captains for spring sports attended the annual Captains Council meeting. Here, our students learned about the importance of mental health and mental health awareness while being a high school athlete. Students were then asked to reflect on what they learned about mental health and how they'll bring it back to their teams at Foreign. Congrats to all these new captains, and good luck this season. A big congratulations to Dakota Adams, John V. Belusu, and Anna Griffith, who will represent Foreign at the Southern Connecticut Conference, SCC, annual art show. This show features artists from 23 SCC districts and includes art created in all genres. Dakota, John V, and Anna will have their work on display in the gallery of the Creative Arts Workshop, CAW, at 80 Audubon Street in New Haven from April 2nd to 22nd. Congratulations to our artists. Thank you to the Foreign community for making our first ever basketball night fundraiser at Foreign a success. We were able to raise almost $850 for the Foreign Faculty Scholarship Fund, and everyone had a fun time playing and watching their teachers and friends compete in a variety of basketball events. Finally, our school's anthropology class celebrated the famous primatologist and anthropologist Jane Goodall. In recognition of her work with chimpanzees, primates, and influence on women, this class celebrated her 90th birthday with snacks and chimpanzee cupcakes made by Alana Finlayson and Olivia Jones. Afterwards, the class followed up the snacks with the documentary about Jane Goodall's continued work with the environment and primates. Jane Goodall turned 90 years old on April 3rd. Thank you everyone for allowing me to speak with you today, and I look forward to speaking with you next time.
Good evening once again. I hope everyone had a wonderful spring break. I'd first like to congratulate all of our recent recipients of Foreign's Lions Lead with Love Award that promotes the recognition of acts of kindness around the Foreign community. Congratulations to Joey Kaminsky, Oscar Lynn, Adrian Cruz, Isabella Valentine, Ariella Diorio, and Aiden Giantino. Recently, the Future Business Leaders of America Club, FBLA, traveled to compete at NVCC. Students competed in economics, personal finance, digital video production, and mobile app development. Congratulations to Zach Israelite for earning 4th in personal finance, and Liz Tran for earning 1st in mobile app development. Huge congratulations to senior Kelly Aspres for being a 3-time All-State winner for wrestling. Great work, Kelly. Before break, the TLC hosted its very own art showcase to highlight recent art made by students in their art classes. This event was a huge success. Thank you to all who submitted their work and to everyone who supported this event. It was a true exemplification of Lion Pride. A special thank you to Anna Griffith, Shay Nicchio, Liz Adkins, Karthikeya Lakoji, and Rima Maroof, along with Mrs. Dotson, Mrs. Plude, and Mrs. Hudson, our amazing art teachers. I'd like to wish a huge congratulations to our athletic director, Anthony Vitelli, who was presented the Robert Duncanson Meritorious Service Award by the CT Athletic Directors. This award, named in honor of one of the primary founders of CAAD, is presented annually to an individual who has served as an athletic director for a number of years and has demonstrated the highest ideals of sportsmanship, integrity, and leadership in the performance of their duties. This award also considers the nominee's record of service and contributions to high school athletics. Congratulations, Mr. Vitelli. Recently, the Yukon Navy STEM crew visited and worked with Mr. Dillon's engineering students, teaching them about additive manufacturing practices. What a wonderful experience. Foreign recently also hosted their March Madness paper airplane tournament. Congratulations to all of our winners, Jean Estrella for the freshmen, Adrian Cruz for the juniors, Devlin Stamler for the seniors, and Will Cushman, who was the winner for the sophomores and the tournament's champion. Thank you for allowing me to speak with you this evening. I look forward to seeing you all at our next meeting. Have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you, students. Feel free to head out and get on with your evening. Don't feel bad.
Thank you.
We'll move on to public comment. I'll read the public comment statement. Speakers may offer objective comments about school operations and programs. The board encourages speakers not to express personal complaints or defamatory comments about the Milford Board of Education personnel or any person associated with the Milford Public School System. Security issues and matters relating to negotiations and grievances will not be permitted. Consistent with the principles of the Federal Education Right to Privacy Act, discussion of students is prohibited absent parental waiver. Public comment does not allow for two-way conversation between the speakers and the board, but we welcome and appreciate your comments and opinions, and all will be taken into consideration. Please note our meetings are televised and live streamed on YouTube. We ask that you state your name and address for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Ms. Preet is our timekeeper. Does anybody wish to address the board for public comment this evening?
Good evening. Thank you for letting me be here tonight. My name is Sarah Demina, 21 Downs Way. As the 2019 graduate of the PLTI Parent Leader Teaching Institute and a mother of 3 children enrolled in Milford Public Schools, grades 1, 5th, and 7th, it is with great disappointment that I stand before you tonight. As a concerned parent and advocate for the educational enrichment of our children, I can no longer remain silent on the subject of a no-cost educational field trip to Liberty Rock Park. Few Milford residents are aware of Liberty Rock Park. This historical landmark, situated in our small city with a big heart, is located off exit 34 on I-95, diagonally across from McDonald's. This site has served as a lookout post and signal station by a group called the Liberty Boys, who later became a part of the famous Minutemen. From Liberty Rock, Milford patriots watched from the Housatonic River, then called the Stratford River, to guard against invasions by British forces during the Revolutionary War. The small park was dedicated in 1897 by the Daughters of the American Revolution and was restored by the Devon Rotary in 2006. During the restoration, a marker explaining the site's history was added, as well as pathways, a flagpole, wooden stations highlighting Milford's history timeline. Stone benches were added, intended for use as an outdoor classroom of students of the Milford School District. 5 years ago, in 2019, I embarked on a journey advocating for a field trip to Liberty Rock Park for the 5th grade students, then at Live Oak School. This historical site holds immense significance in our local history and dovetails into the Milford history and Revolutionary War topics that they cover in the 5th grade curriculum. The unique outdoor classroom not only offers invaluable opportunities for hands-on learning and engagement with Milford's past, but could also be used for earth science lessons in addition to many other educational uses. Due to COVID, the 5th grade students at Live Oaks Elementary School have only had 1 field trip opportunity since 1st grade. Additionally, many families have paid for numerous activities that were canceled due to COVID reasons, with no refunds being issued. The Devon Rotary, who have maintained the property, have graciously offered to cover all transportation costs to the park. As an open public space, there will be no admission fee, and Liberty Rock Park offers a zero-cost options of a field trip for our kids. Despite exhausted efforts over many years to coordinate this field trip, including discussions with Live Oaks Elementary School administration, the Milford PK-5 instructional supervisor, and the assistant superintendent's office, I have faced continual roadblocks without any clear reason for the denial of this no-cost, unique opportunity for hands-on learning and engagement with local Milford history. I strongly urge you, the Board of Education, to consider allowing the 5th grade Live Oaks Elementary School students a field trip to Liberty Rock Park. If denied, please provide transparent explanations for the decisions made. Please, let's work together to ensure that our children have access to this unique educational opportunity that they deserve, and that this crucial piece of Milford history is utilized now for our current, young, and for all Milford residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could, I actually also have a comment from Devon Rotary. They were not able to make it. They also had a meeting tonight at 7 p.m. From Vincent Lombazzi. He is the Devon Rotary treasurer. It was Devon Rotary who developed the idea for Liberty Rock Park along with the city and has paid for its construction. Our intention was to preserve the rock and provide an outdoor classroom.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else would like to address the board this evening? Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're totally good.
Chris Thomas, 8 Argyle Road. I'll be quick because I really want to be around to get to item C. I say this to the Board of Aldermen, and so you are elected officials, and I say it to you too. We have the hearing next Monday night. To the point you can speak out, whatever your position is. If you can't speak out as much, find proxies, call people, get people to come to the hearing. You're elected officials. You got to put your money where your mouth is. We want to know where you stand so we understand it more fully when we go to vote for or against you when you're up for re-election. That's what being an elected official is. Maybe I'll be one day soon. We'll see.
Go for it.
But yeah, just put your money where your mouth is. So put your position out there so we know. I look forward to getting to item C.
Ma'am?
Okay, sorry, I'm not 100% on what item C is. Hopefully I'll be super fast. Robin Ekatar, 1414 Woodward Road. I just have questions about you guys and finances. My neighbor sent me a notice saying that they were cutting some possible special needs finances, and my son goes to Meadowside. We literally moved here because the school district was amazing. So I'm really hoping nothing's going to be cut because he needs a lot of help. Like,
So this is just public comment to the board, so
Okay.
we don't, it's not two-way.
Okay.
But we are having a budget discussion later. That's what
Cool.
item C is. So.
thank you. Item C, dude, I'm with you.
Can you repeat your name, ma'am? Your name?
It's Robin Ekatar.
Ekatar?
I can spell it for you guys if you'd rather. It's Icatar.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else wish to address the board this evening? Okay, seeing none, thank you all for your comments, appreciate your being here. We'll move on to superintendent's, chair's report. Okay, so yes, as has been mentioned, Monday, the 15th is the Board of Aldermen public hearing that starts at 5:30 at City Hall. This is the next step in the budget process. As you know, the Board of Finance has reduced our requested budget funding by $1.3 million. It's next taken up by the Board of Aldermen. So the public hearing begins their process 5:30 p.m. at City Hall on the 15th. And then on Wednesday, the 17th, Dr. Kutaya, myself, and the rest of administration will present our budget request at 7 p.m. Before the Board of Aldermen again at City Hall. We have our Committee of the Whole meeting coming up on the 22nd. Just want to remind board members, it will be the annual parent involvement report will be presented to us. And there are still a few concerts left on the schedule that we were given for Music in Our Schools Month, which is extending into May. So there's a lot of opportunity for board members to take in some great concerts at our schools. Do we have any liaison reports tonight? Ms. Doyle.
Thank you. I went for about 20 minutes, unfortunately, 2 weeks ago to the Permanent Schools Committee meeting as one of the new liaisons to the board. The Pumpkin Delight project is moving forward. There are some issues with the cost of setting up water into the addition so that we have sprinklers throughout it, but we are moving that process forward. We will be getting the glass for the vestibule, the entryway, which will be coming in, and so on track to finish the project. They're just trying to catch up, and look forward to learning more as we go through the process. I will say, there's a lot of information with a school being built or renovated or any of those things, so to be learned.
Thank you. Any other liaison reports this evening? Okay, seeing none, move on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Ms. Glennon, and thank you, members of the Board of Education. I think it's great that I just remind you, and while there's so much public in the room, that every month we get an instructional highlight. We are able to share with this board, with the public, an opportunity to get inside of classrooms, get inside our schools, and to really showcase the progress we're able to make and the experiences our young people have across our district. So tonight is another special evening where we're going to showcase where we are right now, where we're headed, with our career pathways. So with that, I'll hand things over to Ms. Dartieri.
Thanks, sir. Good evening, everyone, members of the board. During tonight's instructional highlight, we are going to have the opportunity to provide the board with the ongoing efforts as we continue to expand opportunities for our students to work along the career continuum. And tonight specifically, you'll hear us reference awareness, exploration, and preparation as part of the opportunities that our students have. And we're also excited as part of the presentation tonight to be able to share a few student voices with you as we go through the presentation. So as we design our career pathways, we always begin with responsiveness to data. We're really intentional about the pathways that we create as part of the work. And our pathways reflect not only trends and data from the labor market and the Connecticut workforce, but we've also in the past leveraged student surveys as well to ascertain the needs and interests of our learners. As always, our career pathways are deeply rooted in our 4 district pillars, and we strive to make sure that we have explicit connections to expanding students' possibilities to innovate, to take on the practice of initiative, and also entrepreneurship. So as I mentioned to you a few moments ago, the presentation tonight will have themes around the career preparation continuum. And there's 3 elements of this career preparation continuum, being awareness, exploration, and preparation. And it is really important for us to connect students to careers at even the earliest stages of their time at MPS. This then transcends to opportunities later on in middle school as well as the high school to begin to provide them experiences that are going to set them up for success in the walls outside of the high school.
So beginning with our youngest learners, we are always thinking about how we can give our students opportunities to experience at a developmentally appropriate level the concept of careers and what life might be like beyond the Milford Public Schools. In our elementary schools, we have STEM labs. We have opportunities for students to participate in career fairs. As we've talked about before, we have a focus on intentional play, where students have an opportunity to participate in scenarios that engage them in scenarios that might be community focused, and giving them an opportunity to think about, what does a firefighter do? What does a library media specialist do, or a librarian do? What do members of our community do every day beyond the walls of our Milford schools? We also focus on curricular connections. So our curriculum in grades K through 12 provide opportunities for students to think authentically and to think about the real world as it relates to them where they are today, even beginning with our youngest pre-K learners. As students enter middle school, we start, as we've talked about, really focusing on this concept of voice and choice, encouraging our students to start really exploring all of the many opportunities that are in our community and beyond. Students engage with the world through virtual reality. They travel near and far with field trips, for example, to our planetarium right here in district. And they participate in electives through which they have opportunities to engage in a variety of different types of art and to really choose which specific areas they want to focus on. They also have a variety of different technology courses they can take, including robotics, wood technology, computer science. And through our Enrichment for All model at the middle school, students have a variety of different opportunities throughout their ELA, social studies, math, and science courses to participate in career-focused experiences. For instance, when students are in 7th grade, they might dig into what it means to be a campaign manager and actually think about how does someone identify what is most important to them as they're running for election, and how do they develop and walk through the entire process of running a campaign. Right, so thinking about some of those real world experiences that perhaps all of you might have experienced, and bringing that to a developmentally appropriate middle school level, but getting our kids to really start thinking about those real world experiences. And then of course, when our students enter high school, they start to hone in on maybe some of those areas in which they're really, really excited. Now, of course, high school continues to be an opportunity for exploration, right? We know that our 9th graders are coming in still dabbling in lots of different areas, but many of our students have started to realize that there are specific areas that they are really, really interested in, and areas in which they want to learn more. For example, journalism. We have a program that runs, if they like, through their senior year, and they can continue to really become, for example, editor-in-chief of the newspaper in their school. For students who are really interested in robotics or engineering, they might engage in year after year, continuing to take courses that escalate in being more and more complex. So with that in mind, the students beginning in pre-K all the way through high school are having career opportunities, but those opportunities might become more specific and more complex as they age.
So our career pathways are derived from career clusters. And in Connecticut, the model that is on the screen for you right now shows the Connecticut career clusters. And those are actually a subset of the national clusters that have been identified in terms of areas where there are anticipated work needs in the future. And again, these are the specific ones that have been identified here in Connecticut. And what we have done is developed, at this point, we have 5 career pathways: computer science, business management and entrepreneurship, and therapeutic services are currently in place. And for next year, we have the new additions of education and training, as well as government and public service. Now, there's different components to a pathway in terms of what makes up a pathway. The first part is that there's 3 credits of coursework focused in that area, really intent on leading that student to either an industry recognized certification, perhaps an early college experience of some sort, possibly a capstone experience as part of that. In addition, there's a strong component of outside of school experiences as part of our pathways. So whether it's work-based learning, pathway-related extracurricular experiences, it's very important that all of our students have that component as they pursue the different career pathways. Now here's an example of one. Our high school students and our current 8th graders have, through the program of studies, all have been given access to these planning guides, which really give an overview of what a career pathway, what that program of study looks like. And it's meant to help our students and our families, in addition to the conversations with their school counselors, but it's really meant to show what would this look like over 4 years, and what might you possibly take, and what are the different options. And it lays out a nice planning tool that first, again, students and families can begin that conversation at home, but then it's really meant to drive conversations with school counselors through that student success planning process. Because that process really starts in middle school, but as they move into the high school, we don't want to be necessarily having these conversations much later in their high school career. We want to start these in 8th grade, 9th grade, and really give them an idea of what that whole overall picture really can look like for them. So again, this is available to all of our students and families through the program of studies, where they can use this as a tool, and then it's heavily used by our school counselors, as I said, through that student success planning process.
So all of our career pathways are aligned to, as I mentioned earlier, labor market as well as Connecticut workforce data. And we're looking for 3 things as we start to map out possible and potential careers for students in those pathways. We're looking for careers that are high skill, high demand, and high wage. And all of this information is available through not only Advanced CTE, but also, as I mentioned, the Connecticut Labor Force website. So we want to share 2 different students' journeys very briefly with you. One in the business pathway and one in the computer science pathway.
Yeah, Max Newton, in grade 12.
Great, so why did you choose to do a pathway here at Ford?
I kind of wanted to get an introduction to like business. I wanted to major in it, and I was kind of unsure as a freshman like what I should major in, and so like pathway kind of helped me figure out where my interests were.
Great, and how has your experience been doing the pathway through those years?
Really good. Like a lot of the stuff is really informational. You learn a lot. It's also fun. Like the classes are really interactive, and the teachers are of course nice. So yeah.
Did being a pathway impact your thinking about your education or your careers?
Yeah, I mean, it's really straightforward, so it's like, it helps me plan out. So like freshman year, I already knew what I should be doing each year to getting to like the final capstone project. So like if you're not on a pathway, like you kind of just pick classes versus like I knew what I should be taking and like where I should be taking it in what year.
Great, perfect, awesome.
We're also going to hear from Malika, who is a grade 12 student at law and is in the computer science path.
Hi, I'm Malika Sivalenka, and I'm a senior here at John Law.
Why did you choose to do a pathway?
So I knew from I want to say the middle of junior year that I wanted to go into computer science or something like that, in that field, in that STEM-related field, because I didn't want to be a doctor for a really long time. And then I looked back and I realized that I enjoyed the computer science courses here at Law, and I've been so committed to them for the past 30 years of my life that it somewhat seemed right for me to just go in this field. And I had a lot of fun during my CSA class. I really enjoyed that, and I just knew that I wanted to pursue something in this field, and this capstone will only give me bigger and better opportunities for that.
How has being in a pathway impacted sort of your school experience?
So being in a pathway definitely, it takes off the whole teachers kind of holding you accountable for everything you do. It kind of makes it more independent, and you have to be accountable for yourself. You have to kind of keep yourself on task and sort of, be more responsible in a way. And it definitely sets you up for college, because in college you don't have a teacher always going behind you saying, turn this on Google Classroom. You kind of have to do it yourself. So this pathway is it's really just an opportunity for students to just get the hang of, keeping that procrastination in check, keeping that time management in check. And I think not only learning new stuff for yourself and learning new topics, but you're also faced with this independence that you might not get to experience until college, but you do, and it's really nice.
And was there anything that you figured out or you changed your mind about that you learned through this experience?
So definitely the first week I struggled a lot with procrastination, because I set myself 2 goals and I only completed one of them, and I was Sunday night I was struggling to finish that second goal of completing a whole unit on this code HS for Python. And ever since then I was I can't do this to myself. I'm a senior, I gotta keep myself in check. I can't be sleeping at 1 a.m., 2 a.m. every night finishing up code HS. I need to do this in a timely manner. So I kept myself accountable. I started working more in class, and I ended up kind of finishing everything. So it doesn't even go to the point where I can do it at home. And that really taught me that if I just keep myself I guess accountable for what I do, and I set myself this mental schedule, I can do it. And it taught me how I think and how I work, and it was really eye-opening.
Thank you. That's it. Thank you so much.
So following our students is always a hard act to follow. I think both Max and Malika spoke so eloquently about the experience of really walking through a pathway. Not only has it provided them with some structure, but they've talked a lot about the independence that it's fostered in them as students as they start thinking about the world beyond high school. So why complete a career pathway, right? Students might wonder, what else can I get out of the pathway beyond that structure? So not only does the pathway offer students a variety of different opportunities to take increasingly complex courses and really dig into a specific field, we also are able to offer our students a variety of different opportunities to earn certificates and certifications and even industry standard certifications that they take with them when they leave the Milford Public Schools, whether they are going to college, career, or other opportunities beyond. For example, we've talked before about the Connecticut Seal of Biliteracy. This seal is a literal seal that is awarded to students who have earned a proficient level in reading, writing, speaking, and listening in a language other than English. So this requires that students have completed satisfactorily all of our English requirements, but also have completed an assessment in a language other than English. For many of our students, that is French, Spanish, or Latin, the languages offered in our district. But even beyond that, we have a number of students who have earned the seal of biliteracy in a heritage language, in a language spoken at home, which is an incredibly valuable way for us to celebrate the many, many languages spoken here in Milford, but also to, of course, celebrate the world language program that we have here and the target languages we offer. Additionally, we offer students the opportunity to complete the Connecticut Certificate of Global Engagement. This certificate celebrates students who are interested in focusing on the world beyond Milford and not only just learning about it, but engaging with it. So one of the cornerstones of this certificate is not only do they complete coursework and not only are they engaged in some sort of extracurricular activity focused on the world beyond Milford, but they also have to complete an action project. And I love that word action, right? Because isn't that what this is all about? When we think about our vision of the learner, we want our students to be global citizens because we want them to do something, to take some kind of action. So the Certificate for Global Engagement celebrates that and highlights that, and we do have a number of students across both foreign and law who are currently pursuing the Certificate for Global Engagement and developing their own action projects. So we look forward to sharing more about that in the coming years.
One of the interesting pieces that we mentioned associated with the pathways are those industry standard certifications that students can pursue. And one of the really unique ones that our students are able to have, for several years now, have been able to achieve is that Certified Nursing Assistant license, which is a part of their learning experience. So the students complete the CNA coursework, and if they are able to successfully pass that prometric testing at the end, they actually leave the course with State of Connecticut certification to work as a certified nursing assistant. So it's opportunities like this where we are able to certify students, and it really will take them right beyond the classroom directly into those work area of need. We currently, as I mentioned before, have 3 pathways that have been offered for our students in business management and entrepreneurship. The therapeutic services, which is the pathway where students can achieve that nursing assistant license, as well as computer science. We're very excited that starting for next year, our students have the opportunity to pursue education and training as a pathway, as well as government and public service. So those are 2 new pathways that our students are currently considering right now as to whether they'd like to pursue those for next school year.
And obviously, this is a slide that I wish I could spend all night walking you through in terms of thinking about what are the next steps, what does the future of career pathways have for us here in Milford. And some of the ones that we are currently exploring and beginning the process of planning is restaurant, food, and beverage services, the law and legal services, cybersecurity and IT systems, and one that has just limitless bounds and opportunities is the marine science and aquaculture. So as you saw, as we walked through and did our building tours with all of you, we really start programming first, and that helps us to really inform the facilities, the resources that we would need in the future to be able to bring these opportunities for learning to our students. So as we wrap up this evening, I just want to bring you back to many of the points that were raised tonight, specifically around our career continuum begins at the earliest ages, from the day students come into school with opportunities for curriculum connections and career showcases, all the way up to the preparatory work and the choices that students have, and creating some of that awareness and opportunities for exploration at the middle school level, leading to the preparatory coursework going deeper into the high school years. And as you saw from our 2 students tonight, substantial connections to the work around vision of the learner. And you heard the students, especially Malika, spoke very much about initiative and perseverance. We talk a lot about the opportunities within the developmental relationships framework. So lots of connections to many of the aspects that we have here in Milford. So thank you very much.
Thank you, staff. Questions from board members? Mr. Smith.
Real quick, because I don't want to be the reason that any of us are later than we have to be. See, hopefully you can win the national championship. But so as someone who in a previous life was an EMT that I got in college, I'd love to, if this, maybe it's your charge or maybe we can look to the state, but I'd love to have a sense of what other career opportunities different districts provide their students. Like I know New London, you can get an EMT certification in public high school. I know we've talked about ASL being offered in middle school. Maybe that's a career opportunity too, but curious if there's a study or analysis of different licenses or certifications you can get in public schools across the state, and then we can have a discussion about maybe in addition to this, other goals and vision we have for moving forward.
So I know so far this year, as I've sat down to talk about dual enrollment coursework with the team, that's launched us into some conversation about some of the career pathways and connections to some of the courses that we would love to be able to offer in the future, and how those would connect to either current pathways or opportunities for us to dream big about pathways down the road. So that conversation there has got us to start to take a look at what surrounding districts are doing, and be able to look at some of those models as well. You know, the one that comes to mind, as I just mentioned, was the marine science. We've started to take a look at some of the schools, especially on the coastline, the shoreline, that are already offering those types of pathways, and opportunities for us to be able to go visit those schools or even talk to staff from those schools about the process that they use to go into creating and developing that pathway.
Thank you.
Other questions? Ms. Zerbe?
Thank you for the presentation. In the student stories, it sounded as if there were students that didn't choose pathways. Were there some that are undecided in there, or did I hear wrong or understand it a little differently?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think message was,
I would say you didn't mishear that. Pathways are optional, so not all students have to pick one of the currently 3 pathways, and next year one of those 5 pathways. So there are students who simply elect to take a wide variety of courses throughout their high school program, and then others who have chosen to have a more focused area of study. And I believe that's what what both students were referring to.
And they can still change their mind along the way?
Yes. It's an opportunity.
Right. Questions, other questions? Ms. Muller?
When you were talking, just not knowing it myself, not having a kid who's moved all the way through high school and not having gone to high school, unlike many of my colleagues. When you talk about the current opportunities to get the industry recognized certifications or the licenses, and you have the 3 listed in here, are there others as well, or are these the only 3 right now currently available?
those are the major ones. I was just trying to think offhand. You know, obviously as we look forward, for instance, construction is one that we're looking for down the road. And one of the one that's in there, that's a pretty popular one, is the OSHA 10-hour certification. Opportunities there because that's needed for apprenticeships, going on to the first construction job site. That's a certification that's required basically for anybody that's entering into construction. So that's one.
I have that certification to enter my house.
Yeah.
Yes. So that right now is one that's being planned in the future as well. Are there, so these are the current ones, and there's obviously lots in the works. You showed many of the pathways that are, obviously there's a lot of certifications in cyber and other places as well. Are there specific certifications and or licenses that'll be associated with the two that are going to be offered next year, either the education or the government and public service?
Those do not have currently have certification attachments, but they do have other opportunities. So for example, the education, students will take the ECE, UConn ECE, If You Love It, Teach It course, which is actually an introductory education course. So before they leave high school, they will have completed an introductory education course and have completed 10 hours in classrooms at multiple levels.
Okay. Can you give us a little more sense on the government and public service side as well?
Absolutely. So the government and public service, again, is one of our newer opportunities. Students will be walking through 4 years of world language if they're taking that course, because it's really focused on that global piece. And it will be tied to the Certificate of Global Engagement as well. So students will be completing an action project with a focus on the community and then also looking beyond the community.
Okay, thanks.
Ms. Doyle.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I also want to say thank you for hosting the facility walkthroughs. I was only able to join for shortly, but that was a huge benefit. I think it really ties into what you're doing here with these career pathways and where we're going in the future. These are opportunities that I know are going to set Milford apart from other districts. That's really what it comes down to, is being able to have students that have an idea of what they want to do and can go forward and be successful when they leave here. I think one of the things to take away is that we do have to really consider about our space usage and what that programming means. Because we can see even in the past few years, the difference in the wood shop room. I know it's not called wood shop, but whatever the room is with all the saws of it. That wasn't there years ago. And so have those opportunities to have kids know how to do it. My nephew's a junior at law right now, and he's asking to go and work with my brother who does construction or someone else. So he's trying to do it, or he's like, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. He wants to try and explore those things. And so if he can go to school and also be engaged, which is the other half of it, as we're coming out of COVID, we need to have engagement of students to be in school and want to be there. Tie this back to some of the other initiatives we had of, they're all kind of rolling together. Kindergarten, our play model now. I remember the student car of starting with a box and how do we build a car and how do we go to a gas station, how do we go to electric. Thinking about these ways we interact with the world is really important for students to understand what the opportunities that exist. And also how we put forward ourselves into the community. I was laughing at the journalism. One of my highlights during the week is the law journalism class puts out videos every week, and so I get to see them, and I just laugh at them because I see the kids playing softball or baseball or sports, and you get to see what they're doing and the opportunities that they understand. And that's what matters. I fully believe it. I don't have any questions. This is kind of what we've been going forward and pushing. Thank you.
Other questions? Ms. Petrosky?
When you were talking about the school counselors presenting the planning tool, what year do they start that in?
That's a great question. Our school counselors really begin student success planning with our students and families. They start that in 6th grade, but that planning in terms of specific programming and careers and interests in pathways and clusters really kicks off in 8th grade, where our students have spent the middle school curriculum through student development, looking at careers that they might be interested in, different pathways, so that they're getting to really think about these things prior to going to high school. Again, we don't want them to have a missed opportunity by discovering a passion maybe a little bit too late, and then they're not able to do that. So, and then that really is a big cornerstone of the conversation for 8th grade around what are you interested in? Would you like to explore a whole variety of things, or and then it continues for all their years in high school, and really is a great segue in terms of their success plan for moving on to things that are post-secondary.
I also had just one more question. When you have, I know that there's right now only 3 pathways offered, and I'm assuming there are full classes in those. And I know that there's been increased interest in CNA class courses. So when we're talking about kids who start down the career pathway, do you have enough information about how many stay in it to the end or decide, oh yeah, no, that's not for me, and they try something else? Do we have any metrics on any of that or any measurements?
I don't think specifically towards that. I mean, it's something we could look into in the future. I know for our Perkins grant specifically, we track completers throughout the entire sequence, and that's very related to what we talk about with career pathways. So that's data that we keep as part of that annual needs assessment and the grant. So we can definitely look into seeing if something like that exists or how we would be able to ascertain that information.
Okay, thank you.
I wanted to ask, I read an article recently, it was either in Hearst or the Current, about Connecticut rebounding with lost jobs. And this article specifically centered on manufacturing and spoke to the fact that there's a big focus in the state on tackling the worker shortage. That's a top priority, and including looking to expand programming in mostly higher education systems. But do you, I know that occasionally you meet with the Perkins Grants folks, and how much interaction do you have with the state in terms of helping with that? How students can, our students potentially, some of them, if they want to go right from school to the workforce, can help fill that pipeline.
So there is trainings that are often put out by the CSDE in terms of Kylie Freeman in the office of Perkins at the state level will often put out professional learning opportunities. Haven't seen anything synchronous or in person in a while, but they do put out a lot of asynchronous presentations. I know Mrs. Swanson and I, when we met with the Industry Collaboration Board earlier on in the year, we dug into an article very similar to Ms. Glennon to what you were talking about and used it as a launch point to dive in and talk about not only Connecticut, but nationally, the need for jobs in the technical areas, the trades, and how the work that we're doing in terms of the stakeholders supporting our work, but also opportunities for courses and internships, how that eventually will have a return on investment for students entering into careers.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other questions from board members? Great, thank you for the presentation, very informative.
Ms. Glennon would like to move forward with high school graduation dates.
Yes.
So for the board's consideration, we'd like to set the foreign graduation date for Monday, June 10th, and laws graduation for Tuesday, June 11th.
Okay, and this follows our standard practice of the alternate years.
Yes, ma'am.
Correct. Ms. Petrosky, this is an action item. Do you have a motion?
Motion that the Milford Board of Education establishes graduation dates of Monday, June 10th and Tuesday, June 11th, 2024 for the senior classes of Joseph A. Foreign and Jonathan Law High Schools, respectively. Graduation ceremonies will begin at 5:15 p.m. for both high schools.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Doyle. Is there any discussion? Standard. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Parents can now begin their planning.
The phone will stop ringing. So we'd like to move to the next item, Ms. Glennon, on the superintendent's report to discuss the 24-25 budget. So there's going to be a handout coming out to you. So the last time we met with the board, we talked about having a short lead time here to this meeting, baking in spring break. But we committed to putting something in front of the board, in front of the public, to represent our best thinking right now. And while it is April and close to the end of the school year, basically around the corner, there is still some time in the budget approval process, and we haven't been before the Board of Aldermen yet. So this is the beginning of our work. I just want to underscore that. This will change, this will be modified, this will be revised, we'll take things off, we'll add things, but right now this is our best thinking. And where we started was the superintendent's letter that is represented in the budget book. So all these items come from my letter, giving the overview of the 24-25 budget. And while what it primarily represents is that list of system improvements, that list that will be taking us to the next level of work. The list that represents, in our eyes, progress, steps toward attaining future goals such as was represented just a few minutes ago in the career pathways. So some of those things that we have on the docket year after year, I think Mr. Altieri was projecting out into 27, 28, right? So many of our long-term plans are stair-stepped, hinging on some plans being laid in year after year. So this list of system improvements is what is represented in 24-25 budget. So Mr. Brennan is going to go through these and to represent what our thinking was on some of this and to explain some of the notes and some of the asterisks. Okay?
Thank you, Dr. Kataya. Ms. Glennon, members of the board. So as Dr. Kataya mentioned, this is some of our initial thinking. And before we even begin, I did want to just mention that this budget was built over many months. and it was a lot of careful consideration in building it. And as you guys are aware, we use zero-based budgeting, so we build everything from the ground up and we justify everything. So making any sort of cut is very difficult to do. Having said that, we want to take a look at some of this initial thinking that Dr. Kataya had in her budget letter. So I'm not going to read line by line for each one of these, but I do want to highlight a couple of the notes, and then we can go from there and discuss. So if you take a look at this first line here, the specialized programming, there are 4 different areas for specialized programming supports there. And these programs were proposed based on student needs. So these are current needs that we're seeing in our students. And these are programs that we are planning to, we proposed in order to address some of those needs. That 522,000 right there represents the total amount of those 4 pieces. The next 2 line items you're going to see in the estimated savings $0. And the reason for that is these are 2 items that we definitely cannot cut. Those are items that we see that we have rising costs and contractual obligations. So based upon those 2 factors, those are items that we would definitely not be able to cut, and any cut in those line items would be something that we refer to as a phantom cut, something that is just cut, but it can't be. Summer sports.
Excuse me, can we just identify what we're, so those 2 lines are special education services and regular and special ed transportation. If we could identify those as we're speaking.
Yes, sure, sorry about that. In the second line there, special ed services was 0. And the third one was regular and special education transportation, which was also 0 in that 4th column there. And those are the ones that are based on rising costs and contractual obligations. So those two line items there.
And if I could just jump in on the first line item, you will note the impact. Let's say we don't put in the additional specialized programming, hire the additional behavioral supports. There's a potential of increased tuition costs on the special ed side, so therefore more students being sent out of district. And those are the high level costs, right? Those are the individuals that are being sent to either state or private institutions for specialized instruction. We thought we would, as we explained during the budget process, house those children here first because we believe in keeping kids home, but second, it also is more efficient. So you will see in the impact section there that there's actually a potential of reducing this number today, but next year we could be sitting at this table looking at rising special ed tuition costs because of this cut.
In this next line item, the summer sports, as many of you are aware, the CIAC changed their rules recently and allowed out-of-season practice for the summer sports. So if we had cut this program, that would be something that was a detriment to our athletes, and it would put them at a possible disadvantage to neighboring towns. In our facilities line item here, I did want to highlight this. This would just continue deferment of buildings and ground projects, and this is something that I know we've discussed and at different meetings throughout the process. We've referred back to previous budget cycles where at the end of the year, there was end of the year money that we were able to use towards buildings and grounds projects that we haven't been able to find in recent years due to our efficient budget strategies. So now we've been trying to intentionally budget for buildings and grounds projects as a result of that, knowing that there isn't going to be end of the year money left over. So this cut here would just defer some of these projects even further, and it could put us in a possible state of emergency repair, as discussed throughout the budget process. If you look into this next grouping here, which is system improvements, so this would be the next page in the budget book. It says increase access to high quality learning experiences for all students. I want to draw your attention to the second line there, the American Sign Language at the middle schools, which was the expansion of the world language program that we were looking to do. And that was based on voice and choice from our students themselves. They had selected that this was a language they were looking to engage in, and that a possible cut could end up resulting in a cut of that program. Skipping to the next page, this has some continued textbook, software, curriculum. I do want to come back to this at the end because I think that I can give an example of how this connects specifically to our end item number. Looking down to the second number there, expanding career pathway learning opportunities aligned to industry needs. You skip to that page there. The line item where it says the addition of the esports team at the high school level, that was a newly student sport team that we have been planning for 2 years now, and it's been requested by both high school, by the students at the high schools. So this would be a possible deferment of that actual program. In the third category there, the ensuring infrastructure and equipment support services, you'll notice that the computer and servers replacement says $20,000, but in the notes section, it says of the $340,572, $320,572 of that are obligated for leases, so that cannot be cut. So only $20,000 of that amount would be able to be cut. Much like on that first page where we talked about items that just truly cannot be cut based upon contractual obligations. So I do want to draw your attention also to the security cameras and computers. So this says defer of outdated and failing equipment. So this is something that's an area of concern, because if a camera fails and there's no money in the budget to replace it, that's something that would be very difficult at that time and impossible to replace if there was no money in that at that time. So if you've noticed throughout some of these items here, there's asterisks in that first column. I do want to bring you back to that now. So on that left column, there are some asterisks. So that asterisk refers to not taking into account efficiencies already realized in these objects. So this is why I wanted to go back to the curriculum, to really kind of explain what this really means. And then if you take a look at the total estimated savings in that fourth column there, down at the bottom, the $2,139,233, that total cost of system improvements does not take into consideration efficiencies found in the budget process. For example, if we flip back to curriculum, page 3. So you'll notice there in the estimated savings for those curriculum, it represents a total amount of $53,405. So if you refer to your budget book, and I can give you the numbers right now so you don't have to flip back to it, the adopted budget for 23-24 year was $191,784. Okay? That's this current year that we're in. The proposed budget for next year was $151,834. So that's what we are proposing in this current upcoming budget. So right there, we've already found efficiencies within our curriculum writing process to the tune of $39,950, which in the budget book represents 20.8% decrease. So right off the bat, we're looking for efficiencies and we're trying to find them. So that already represented a 20.8% decrease in our curriculum writing line item. So if we were to cut this $53,405, that would be in addition to the efficiencies we've already found, which would result in a total from this year to next year's budget of $93,355, which really results in a 48.7% decrease from year to year. So that's how some of these savings, I just really wanted to call your attention to, that total number could be a little misleading because it's not already taking into account some of those savings that we've already looked for within the budget.
So Ms. Glennon and board members, while we did not go through it line by line, because we've done that throughout the budget process, we wanted to represent on this document where we're starting our thinking. This is where we will start looking for a reduction of $1.3 million based on the Board of Finance's action.
I have a question on the page 4, the security cameras and computers, the $95,000 defer upgrade of outdated and failing equipment. So is this a line that we had already deferred last year?
I know that before it comes to the board, this line is always much bigger. But we'll have to get back to you on whether we deferred it after it came to you. So we'll have to look at that.
Well, I thought last year, as part of the reduction that we sustained at the end, that was one of the items that were deferred to make up that reduction. So
we'll confirm that.
Okay. I saw Ms. Doyle shook her head.
I'm pretty sure you spread them out over 4, like, the cycle's 5 years, you spread it to 6 years or something like that with the cycle.
I'm sure if Mr. Nielsen was in the room right now, he would say that we're always cutting him. So he'll ask for 100 cameras. We're like, can you do 75? Like, so we feel like we're in a bidding war with him a bit. So it's one of those areas that we just do what we can, but can always do more.
Well, that happens in a lot of areas, I think, in the school budget, so. Questions or comments from board members? Yes, Ms. Mahler?
Question, when you said this is the starting point, does that mean that you will potentially be adding things to this list, taking things off of this list? What's on the table as potential? Could we see an updated version of this at some point in the process?
Yes.
Or would that need to wait until we get a final number?
I really feel like we are just at the start of this race, and we don't have any more information today than we did 2 weeks ago. We haven't even presented to the Board of Aldermen. We have no idea what that feedback is gonna, and we usually get a sense of that through the Q&A, right? So, so this is definitely gonna change. It's not if, it definitely will change. And we're back at the office finalizing touches on move forward costs, and so will we have enough to even just remain flat from year to year, right? So, that's the bare minimum hope, but that's not exactly how we want to lead, is with bare minimum hopes, right?
Right, so this will update, and just a tiny little footnote, this is not the beginning of the process. This is the beginning of everybody outside of this room paying attention to the process and cutting the budget for fun, and then everybody else paying attention to the process. This board did its work, did its due diligence. You and your team did your work for a very long time, many, many months, as Mr. Brennan said. So a lot of people want to characterize this as, it's the beginning of the process, no one's really paid that much attention yet, so now we should, and they are wrong on so many levels, and it's important that we in this room acknowledge that. So this is the beginning of everyone else paying attention to this process, not the actual process itself.
That's a good point.
Thank you for that correction.
I also want to point out that the current schedule for the Board of Aldermen, I believe, has a vote very early, much earlier than typical. So, that's part of the process as well. So I think they have it within the first week of May, which typically last year they voted May 11th. Typically it goes a little bit later into the month because they are hoping to have more accurate information from the state in terms of revenue. But, I heard through the grapevine that, something about the charter, although in the past the charter has been, I know I have been told that the charter they don't necessarily need to stick to the charter anymore because it was based on, so many years ago, the date in the charter was based on having to hand prepare the tax bills, and now it's all computerized, so it's a much easier process to go through. But, the potential is there that they could be voting at the very beginning of May. So that's not even a month away. So I think the process will go quicker than we maybe anticipated. Well, Mr. Smith?
Yeah, thank you. I was curious, Mr. Brennan, and if you could, as someone who's very well aware, it's my first year on the board and trying to learn and get up to speed, I really appreciate you providing the context of the savings year over year and the efficiencies you found. If in a future version of this chart, if they can include that to make sure that we understand what those cuts might mean for the programs and the students, because I do think it's helpful in making decisions, and like my colleague mentioned, you certainly did a lot of work, we did a lot of work at the start of this process, and I think the board has made clear where our vision of the future is, and now it's the other parts of our municipal government where they make their decisions, but as whatever final budget number we get, understanding the context of those other additional savings that you've been able to realize would be helpful in how we have to operationalize whatever our final number is that we have to make work. Thank you.
So also, the budget that we had before us last year was a maintenance budget. I mean, it had no new initiatives in it. It was simply a budget that moved forward the needs of the district based on contractual increases, inflation, things of that nature. obligations. This budget, we were fortunate to include some modest system improvements. So what I'm seeing here is that you're staying within the system improvement area to start with, looking at what we might defer. And then, if, based on, the current $1.3 million, I think certainly if that number were to change, were to get larger, the impact could be much worse. We're getting into territory like we were in last year.
So
Just as
I
more of
think
an
the theme of the
observation.
1.3 could be best characterized as deferment with that type of number, because you want us to dream for kids. You want us to establish big dreams and goals, right? And that's what this represents. We want to add world language changes, and we want to do X and Y. Like, that's what this represents. So the 1.3 is best characterized by deferment because it's this manageable number within the system improvements, right? You see 1.3 in this document. What we don't want to do is get larger than a 1.3 reduction, because now we're talking about not being able to sustain the current system.
Right. That's what
And my goal as instructional leader at Milford Public Schools is to sustain year over year and get better. The last thing we want, which was what we were faced with last year, is to take steps back. So something larger than 1.3, the name of the game is no longer deferment. It's now, what are we cutting from the current foundation of the organization?
Right. So I will add, you're looking at us and saying that we want you to dream big. It's not just us. I think the community. I think the community has been relatively clear that they want to see us moving in this direction. That this is. It has the support of the community as well.
So part of my question to the Board of Aldermen will be, heads up, is, so this is what we want. This is the progress we want for our schools. We want progressive schools to attract families, right? Mm-hmm. But we have to have the conversation as a city, how would we like to fund that? Where are the resources to fund progress? To bring in these career paths. We want aqua, marine, and
Restaurant, beverage.
those cyber, government, law. Like, Mr. Smith, you said, what are other school districts doing? Well, there's a little bit of competitiveness there, right? Mm-hmm. We have to stay up to date. And we can't look to when we were in school and what did school look like when I was in the 1980s. I'll go ahead and play my hand, right? Just because we went to school from the age of 5 to 18 doesn't certify us to be professionals in the world of teaching and learning. We have professionals that have created plans and dreams for this city. And it's our best effort to show you what we'd like to do, but the conversation is bigger. It's for the whole city. How would we like to fund the dreams?
And
so that's my
creating
question
plans
to the
and
Board of
dreams,
Aldermen.
I feel the need to say this. That goes back, 10, 15 years. It predates you. The plans and dreams predate Dr. Gutierrez.
They're not my personal ones, by the way. This budget is like the systems proposal.
But I think that's important to, going all the way back to, the long-range plan that we did implement back in 2013, 14, that had career pathways on it, that had, in
the STEM labs.
STEM labs in world language in elementary school, play-based learning. These are things that the foundation was set many, many years ago. The different boards over time have directed you to implement. So I think that's an important.
And it's the system's goals and dreams, not mine personally.
Correct.
And that's a great example of adding FTEs during a time of declining enrollment. That when you added STEM labs, congratulations board, you did that. You added 8 FTEs because you added programming. That's the message that we need to continue to harp on. That adding programming is not driven by enrollment numbers.
And it felt pretty good to be able to say to that former educator that we met over the weekend at the, who is a elementary school science specialist, who said, that would be great if you had that in Milford. Well, guess what, we do. So maybe she'll be coming back. That's something I'm very proud of. So, Ms. Doyle.
Thank you. On the first section, in the specialized programming section, how has the formula changed for reimbursement? Not positively,
That Grant suggests something negative,
Right.
yes.
And so, what I'm saying is, I'm just gonna use a number just as a baseline. Say we spend $25 million on educating special students within this bucket. We might be reimbursed, I don't know, maybe we got 50% now, maybe we're gonna get 30% now. I'm just picking numbers, not reality.
No, so the fact that you're pointing at is it's unpredictable.
Right.
We don't know. And this year, we were all like given a little bit of surprise because of a capped number and then a redistribution of that money. So we're, treading water on that.
Right. So
the number is less relevant than it's not
Impact.
predictable, and you
Right.
don't know until next March.
Right. So
Like
there's-
every March, it's surprise.
So there's no way for us to ever know and kind of rationalize costs and plan accordingly because of reimbursement rates, but also how many students are leaving our district at the end of the day.
Well, the fluidity of enrollment
Right.
on
There's always
students
gonna
that
be
come
that
in and out with
aspect.
IEPs is
Right.
highly unpredictable as well.
But, so, for an average out-of-placement district, what is the average cost of an out-of-placement district?
For tuition and transportation, roughly 140 to 160.
Okay, so that's 4 students at most with this number here, out of 522,000, 100,000. So about 3 to 4 students could be covered in that cost. If we internalize these programs with 2 teachers and 6 paras, how many students can we help within district?
Right, but that cost is also for the BCBA and clinical therapists.
Right, so there's a
Those
large
last two
return.
items, a large group of students.
Right, a large group of students. My point is that we can help 4 students, maybe, with that number, where we might have students that may be able to be kept in district.
I
a
would say
large
about
number.
12 kids.
12 to 15, I would say.
Yeah.
It's a huge, it has a impact and also positive to stay in the community, part of their classrooms, their friends where they go to school, all of those ties to the community that we want to encourage. I think that's a very hard conversation it helps students who are on the brink too. Students that we can keep in the district that might need a little bit of help, or the teachers, or any of those things, is my point. On the 4th line, summer sports. So what's the safety issue? I mean, the question is not necessarily whether it's coaches run, because the students still do stuff during the summer on our grounds and doing prepared. So do we create a safety issue by deferring something like that in terms of summer sports? So if the
I don't
students
know what you're saying.
If the students know that everyone else is allowed to practice now outside and can be coached by it, and the students are still coming in, are they gonna be more determined to come and do football practice and coaches practice or captain practice without supervision?
I think you'll just have a little bit of what's already going on.
Right, that's what I mean.
I think the point here is you're just going to have towns that are going to be head and shoulders above our athletes because they've got 4 to 6 weeks of practice and conditioning, which becomes very important in an athlete's life.
Right. Well, I think one thing I feel like Milford loves is its sports. So that would be a detriment. Not to say every single one of these is not a detriment, I'm just asking questions about these ones. How far does the change in the curriculum put us out again? Because we've already encountered those issues with COVID and everything else, and I mean, there's so much of a deferral process. I mean, this is the 3rd budget I think I've been on, and every time we're gonna roll out curriculum for another year, we're gonna roll out this, we're gonna roll out cameras, we're gonna roll out this, because there are limits to budget and limits of where we can cut, and it seems like to me, curriculum is one of those things where we're doing a good job, we can do better, but this is an area where we might be able to cut some money.
Oh, I'm going to bring your attention to the language of this, actually, and it's the initial implementation.
Right.
So it's not like even the revision, like, it's ready.
Mhm.
So we got to put it in the hands of teachers, bring them together, do some training, resource allocation, et cetera. So it'll be a dribble.
And so how does, in that case, if we're delaying initial implementation again for another year, does it become stale at some point?
It becomes not as updated to state and national standards, particularly when you're getting into like the AP world, if there's
Right.
any on here. I don't see
So,
any on here, but.
in some ways, could you say that we're wasting money by having, not wasting, but we have to re-update work that we've already done because we haven't been able to implement in a way again?
It doesn't change that fast.
No.
Okay.
Ms. Petrowski?
So I have I guess a couple of concerns on some of the risks in some of these cuts. I get on the special ed, it'd be great to keep them in-house. It has a longer-term effect of making things cheaper for us. This is a benefit for us. But when we have things like, oh, this is required to align with new legislation, we're just going to defer it. This is required by law. Oh, we're just going to defer that. We've deferred grounds several years in a row now, and I just kind of feel like every time we defer, that just ups the opportunity for an emergency to occur. So I guess I'm concerned about some of these items here. Listen, cybersecurity, it'll bring your whole system down. And I mean the whole system down. And it is darn expensive getting it back up again. Right? This is not something that if this happens to us, and God forbid, I need wood, that kind of a hit, and school systems have been especially targeted. This is something that I'm concerned that we're saying, oh yeah, we can defer that, but at what risk? So I see you saying 2.1 is a possible things that we can defer or cut. I can imagine going into the Board of Alderman meeting and they say, oh, well, you said you can cut 2.1.
Well, I didn't say
I'm
it
going to
can.
take more.
I didn't say it can.
Yeah, it's, the total cost of the improvements. So I think that's important to,
Okay.
This is
that's
the
important.
pool from which we would draw our
Okay.
1.3
Because
reduction.
I have to say, there's things here that I'm looking at and I'm like, yeah, that's going to cost us a lot more, right? If we don't do it, and that's a very big concern.
I think if this is the table in May and we're talking, we'll have to develop a common lens through which to look at. And I
Okay.
think safety, security, risk, harm to students, staff, the system would probably be a priority,
Yeah.
right? So we'd probably have to calibrate on what lenses are we looking through to make our decision.
Okay. I guess that's my concern, is the risk analysis. The risk, I mean, listen, you've had hardly any time to get this together. I get it. I don't want to, put anybody down. This is a good comprehensive list, but I do think that the risk analysis needs to be attached to this. What is our potential risk?
Well, that's the purpose of tonight, is to get that kind of feedback, so.
Yeah, so I guess I would ask that we add that to this piece.
And the closer we get to having to make a decision, we'll come with a much more refined list as to what we recommend.
Okay.
Of course, it is the desire of the board to make that cut, whether it's included in that list that we provide or not. So we could put something on there and the majority of the board will be like, no, that's not a good idea, but I'll make a much more specific recommendation by the time we get to that point.
Okay, that would be helpful, thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Preet?
Just a clarification question for when you were in front of the Board of Aldermen on Wednesday night, do you take them back through square one like you did with the Board of Finance? Okay,
Yep.
so you go through the presentation, and then that night also you then deal with the 1.3 that the Board of Finance cut that night, or?
I don't deal with the 1.3 with them.
Okay, gotcha.
We let them know.
Yes.
That,
Okay.
We present the budget that we've developed.
Gotcha.
We present the budget.
yeah, it's the presentation of the Board of Ed's proposed budget.
Right.
Yep.
Gotcha.
And likely, the Board of Aldermen will bring up questions about, what do you think you'll do with the 1.3? I'm just predicting because that's what's happened
In the past.
in the past.
Okay.
So that's probably how that door will be open to reductions.
Other questions? Comments? Ready to move on for now? Okay. Policies.
We have policies in front of you for a second read and approval hopefully this evening. And we'll hand things over to my colleagues to point out the changes, starting with homeless, 5118.1.
So just to make one note for you that all of the insertions are coded in blue font. So just to let you know, the suggested changes from the board were made since our first read. And I'll give you an opportunity to look it over and let us know if you have any questions on just 5118.
Get the motion to do the motion first and then we can.
Sure. Motion that the Milford Board of Education approves Board Policy 5118.1, homeless, as presented by the administration, homeless students.
Is there a second?
Second.
Did we have discussion? Thought everything looked fine from what I saw.
Okay.
Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
I'd like to turn your attention next to policy 6146, which is graduation requirements. Again, same insertions are coded in blue.
Motion that the Milford Board of Education approves Board Policy 6146, graduation requirements, as presented by the administration.
Second?
Second.
Ms. Doyle seconds. Discussion?
I have one question.
Yes.
On page 4 of 7, under number 1.
I'm sorry, to what?
Under number 1, under section 7, number 1.
Options at the very bottom?
Yeah, at the
Okay.
very bottom. The last sentence, enrollment in summer school and pass the graduation requirement. Before enroll, is that a or a number 2?
What were you saying?
It looks like
Something got cut off.
It's not a complete
Right.
sentence, enroll in summer school and pass the
Yes.
graduation.
Yep, yep.
Number 2 and then 3.
What was in the, let's see, I have mine from last.
May enroll in.
I don't have that page from last month.
It should be number 2.
I think it should
Be number 2 and then there's a number 3.
And then a number 3.
There's 3 options and then a number 2.
That should be a 2, and then 2 should be a 3.
Okay. So we'll make those changes. Change that's housekeeping really. Other than that, I thank you for making the changes. This reads much better than it did before, so thank you. Any other questions?
You made the motion?
You made the motion.
Well, that's amended.
Okay, go ahead.
Right?
I guess.
Motion that the Milford Board of Education approves Board Policy 6146, graduation requirements, as amended by the administration.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
So policy 6159, the insertions are in blue.
Motion that the Milford Board of Education approves Board Policy 6159, Individualized Education Program, Special Education, as presented by the administration.
Your second?
Aye.
Second. Second by Ms. Preet. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Next one for review and approval is 6172.6, remote and online learning.
Motion that the Milford Board of Education approves Board Policy 6172.6, remote online learning, as presented by the administration.
Your second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
And I'm going to take you to 5111. This may look familiar because we just did it last month, but we sought additional legal counsel and made, if you remember, we kind of made like a last-minute switcheroo, or we want to get back to the number we had initially. So on page 3 of 4, first paragraph, ages of attendance should be 21, and last paragraph on that page should be 21 because it represents a general body. And this is not necessarily a special education policy. And we were asked by council to ensure that we have the appropriate references in the legal reference to ensure that special education students would be allowed the 22. So it's the 10-76A to the 10-76G re-special ed. So we had that in place. So the two changes we're asking approval for is to make that change back to the age 21 in both of those paragraphs.
Motion that the Milford Board of Education approves Board Policy 5111, school age entrance, as presented by the administration.
Your second?
Second.
Mr. Smith seconds. So I have a question then, I'm sorry. So we are, under what circumstances would we be responsible for educating a child under 21 years of age? So
Under 21?
Well, that's what this says. That so it would be a student that has not completed graduation requirements?
Yes.
And they can stay in this school district until they're 21?
Yeah, we would have the obligation to educate them. It could look in a different form than attending high school, but yes.
Okay. Well, any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Moving on to talent management and development report, Ms. Capazno.
Thank you. You see in my monthly report, I have listed, as usual, the job postings, personnel recommendations, retirements, resignations, terminations, and stipend appointments. I will point out that we are holding at 5 teacher retirements to date. And also just wanted to mention that our recruitment season is well underway, having attended 6 recruitment fairs in the past 3 weeks. So.
Good job. Any questions for Ms. Capazna? Yes, Ms. Molly.
Are any of the recruitment fairs at new locations than where you have typically gone in past years?
Yes, yes. I had to list them because I had to remember. It was a whirlwind last week. Luckily, it was spring break. We did Yukon, Eastern Connecticut, Central Connecticut, Fairfield University. We did the Increasing Educator Diversity Recruitment Fair up in Weathersfield. And then lastly, we added, I don't know if you saw in Kathy's online thing, the Milford Library job fair. We got in like 3 days prior, and it was a great fair right down at the Milford Public Library. So a lot of, non-certified people. So that was pretty successful. Yeah.
Yes, Ms. Petrosky.
For the 5 retirements, can you tell me what the teacher requirement, what levels are they? High school, middle school, elementary?
Yes. They are actually 1 middle school, and the rest are high school. 4 high school, 1 middle school.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Ms. Doyle?
Thank you. The foreign athletic director, is he staying until the end of the year?
He is.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, all the retirements are through the end of June.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. It does happen mid-year when sometimes people retire, but these 5 are staying on through the end of the school year.
Any other questions on the personnel report?
Quick one.
Yes, Ms. Irby?
Are math tutors a regular posting on the list?
Math tutors? No.
The last list on the job.
Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
So
Thank you, Jen.
for some of our students who require homebound tutoring or supplemental, we posted for math tutors because we're in need of them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll hand the last 2 items over to Mr. Brennan, the disbursement report and the quarterly budget report.
Thank you, Ms. Qatar. Members of the board, in your package, you'll find a list of all disbursements for the month of March, over $1,500. At this time, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions from the board on this comprehensive list? Ms. Petrosky?
So on page 43, the last line, the Milford Food Service,
Yes.
the unpaid meal charges.
Yes. So, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'll ask you, can you explain that, and can we have that in the food service budget instead of here?
Absolutely.
Or no?
So, based on legislation, there's 2 types of debt for the food service. It's delinquent debt and bad debt. So bad debt, it happens when the food service department, after a number of times and chances and different opportunities, tries to get that unpaid balance from the students and their families. At a certain point, when the year closes, that delinquent debt turns into bad debt. And that money cannot be paid for out of the food service account. And it needs to be paid for, based on legislation, out of the Board of Ed general fund.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
If that doesn't kick over until the end of the year.
Correct. At that time, it's delinquent debt, and
Right.
it's still actively being pursued.
Right, so would it end up in our budget at the end of the year once it kicks over?
What do you mean in our budget? At the end of the year, whatever is remained in that total amount, so.
Right.
So this is from
This is from
2023?
2023.
Okay, this is just now coming through onto our budget
Correct.
for now, okay.
Correct.
Didn't feel like the end of the year, so
Yeah,
it's a
no,
little
so
unsure.
this year, there's still
Yeah.
So, yes,
a
as of
delinquent debt.
It
for
Takes
this
time to
issue.
become a bad
To
debt.
kick all the
Yeah.
way in, okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Brennan. Quarterly budget report?
So as mentioned at last quarterly budget meeting in January, it's board policy governance that we will present to you a quarterly budget. And this one marks the 3/4 way point. There's a few items I just wanted to outline for you. As I'm sure many of you do, and like I do when I'm looking at my own personal budget, I start at that bottom line. So I do want to start at that bottom line, at that last line item tonight, and just call your attention to the deficit, the anticipated deficit of $591,430.46, which I know at first, when you see that number, you can almost gasp and say, what is that amount? But I do want to talk to you tonight and outline the plan of how we're going to address that deficit and end the year in a 0 budget. So going back to the beginning now, much like we did at last quarterly report, I'm not going to go line by line, but I'm going to call your attention to a couple of the line items that the couple account numbers that we are watching very closely. So if you take a look at account 1111 with the certified teacher salaries, just once again, I just want to mention that this is our biggest account by far, and we have over 600 certified staff that come out of this, certified teachers, and we are constantly watching it, and it can fluctuate over time, and at this point, there's no concerns at all. As you'll see, it represents 99.38% has been used thus far. The line below that, 1112, homebound tutors, this one is slightly over budget, but even though it looks like it's 105% as a total amount of percent used, that amount is very small at this point. It's just $10,000, and we plan to find that through some other savings in a different account in that area. And that homebound tutors is based on student needs, much like many of the things that we do. So it's something that we have to provide as a service we have to provide to the students when it's needed for their needs. Account 1117, this is another account we're watching closely. It's currently projected to be at 104% of the adjusted budget. But much like we talked about at the quarterly meeting in January, this account here directly offsets with that 3212, the sub-teaching services, which is our interns. And if the board remembers, we talked about how it's been hard to find interns, which has caused an increase in the amount of substitute teachers that we need to hire. But those two line items, it's not one for one, but you can see that that amount that we have as deficit in one will be covered by the surplus in the other. Taking you to account 1118, curriculum work. So right now we are at 100% of that, and that's fully expended. I am going to come back to that account shortly in just a little bit. So hold that one off to the side for a minute. Account 1126, cafeteria aids. You're going to notice that this one's slightly over budget, and as we talked about, this is due to the Connecticut minimum wage increase. Account 1130, severance pay. It's perfectly normal to see this account at this lower amount right now. So if you look at the percentage, it's at 39.65%. This is the account that we use to pay our severance for teachers who are retiring, contractually obligated severance pay. At this point in the year, it's not unusual for this number to be typically low. So in this last quarter, we may see that number increase for our final budget report. Account 1200, payroll freeze account. So as we mentioned right at the beginning of the presentation, when there are deficits that we are noticing throughout the year, we take different measures to curtail spending and make sure that we are going to end in that zero balance budget. So one of the ways is, as we talked about earlier with a different presentation, was through the money that we're going to receive through excess cost. Other ways that we are making sure that we're going to end in that zero-based budget is to freeze some of the accounts that we currently have and put that money aside to make sure that we have that money in reserve to pay some of these other costs in these accounts that we have major deficits in, some of these special ed budget costs that we're going to talk about shortly. So running back to account 3202, legal services. So this is based on, this is over budget, and that is based on number of student issues that we've had. So we are currently at a deficit of negative $44,117.59. Jumping down to the next band of ones, the 5100, 5101, 5102, 5103. So 5100 is our transportation. The reason that that one primarily is over budget is based on homeless transportation. Homeless transportation falls within regular transportation, and this year we've seen an increase in the amount of homeless transportation that we need to provide. So if a student is identified as a homeless student, we need to provide transportation to their school, and that is the reason why we have such a deficit there. 5101, 5102, and 5103. These are ones that we talked about at last quarterly budget as well. These are the ones that are significantly over budget, and those are based on student needs. We've talked about how sometimes it's hard to predict what student needs are going to be on year to year, and those are the ones that we're really trying to cover. And those fall right in line with 5600 and 5601, our tuition for special education and our special education non-public and public. So the tuition and transportation. If you take a look at 5109, transportation special ed aids, this is also based on student need. So in the event that a student needs some extra support on the bus, we need to provide that. And that would result in why we have a deficit in this account. Looking at account, account 6000, supply freeze account, that's another account where we've held the money in reserve right now as a surplus so that we can use that to offset some of the deficits that we are finding in some of our other accounts, very much so in the 5101, the 5103, and the 5600. And I also want to go back, sorry, I skipped over one, 5202, uninsured coverage. I know we spoke about this last month, but I do want to just remind you guys what that one is. The negative 213,000 there, that is based on a failed chiller at Foreign High School, and this is going to be covered by insurance. The process is that we need to pay it up front, and then they would reimburse it, very similar to things that have happened in the past, much like the Harborside flooding years back. And 8,000, account 8,000 is another one of those freeze accounts that we have from the 8,000 series that we're holding money in reserve to make sure that we end in a balanced budget. And that is all the different accounts that I really wanted to highlight. At this time, I'm happy to take any questions you may have. Like I mentioned before, at this time, we are planning on ending in a zero budget, very balanced budget, and there are no concerns at this time.
Ms. Muller?
I have a question.
Yes.
I would like to know if I'm connecting dots correctly.
Yes.
In my own head. 50-50. When we were talking about the budget earlier, one of the potential items that was in here was the creation of the 2 new classrooms so that we can keep some of our students in district and not be sending them out of district. And that was, if I'm remembering correctly, a potential for 12 to 15 students to be affected by that new add to the district. That thing that we all vetted, went over, talked about, agreed on, included in the budget, thought it was a great idea. Now it's potentially included in this list of things that we may not be able to do next year because of these unvetted cuts that were made. Would the addition of those 2 new classrooms and the ability to keep 12 to 15 students in district impact some of these lines that, as you say, can be wildly unpredictable year to year and therefore reduce our potential up and down unpredictable deficits that we are running in these massive areas of transportation and tuition costs? So right now, we're running these massive deficits here because those costs are unpredictable. I'm assuming that with the addition of those 2 classes and keeping 12 to 15 students here in the district in a predictable setting, which not only is beneficial to them and their families, but also predictable from a budgetary perspective as well, am I connecting dots correctly that that would actually go a long way towards saving the district a significant amount of money above and beyond just what it costs to send them out? It would enable us in this budget process to even out and add a layer of predictability to the whole thing overall, which would make everything just run more smoothly and more affordably.
I would say yes, it definitely would help those accounts, but I don't want to mislead to make it seem like in next year's budget, we're at.
It won't take care of the whole
It
thing,
won't take care of the whole
obviously.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not a panacea.
No,
Yes.
I mean, of course not, and it's never
Yeah.
going to be, because that's
Right.
why it's an unpredictable nature of a cut in general. But were we able to keep those students here, those costs and those wildly unpredictable swings, at least from the perspective of those 12 to 15 students, would be manageable
I think
I
so.
would agree with that. yeah.
in a different way?
Yes.
Okay.
It could help, you know, and those are only elementary level programs, by the way.
Right.
So you're still gonna have a student whose needs we can't meet, would need to be placed out. But at least we would have a step
Mhm.
to put them in a different specialized program before we go from Milford Elementary School to outplacement. There would be a program for us to try to specialize and support them here.
Right.
So it diminishes the likelihood of
Right.
that to increase.
It's a more responsible long-term plan.
And not the last time you'll hear about it, because we'll have middle and high school plans for that too.
Absolutely. Yep.
Ms. Doyle?
Thank you. Legal services, any update on in-housing some of those in the future?
So, we did explore that.
I know,
You want me to
remember.
add to the central office?
Well, I mean, we were
Really?
budgeting 272,000.
That's fine.
I mean, a lawyer within a public school system doesn't make $272,000. Like, there's a cut in cost, and there's obviously, you never can in-house all of it. But there
Yes.
may be some play in the,
Well, I think
So-
a year ago we talked about this.
Yeah,
yes,
we did.
that's why I'm bringing
And
it
I
up
think-
again.
And I wouldn't want to say it's off the table, but one of the things that we're finding is when you contract with a firm, now you have a number of representatives from that legal team who have specialized areas. So some of the problems we're finding is if we go with one type of attorney, that may come with a savings, but now we may need to contract out for other services that might not be their specialty, per se. And given the different variety of specialties, as some of us are aware, in the field of law, it could add up quite expensively to try to in-house it like that, but when you contract with a firm, now you have their entire legal team as part of your disposal.
And so this covers anything from the residency hearings, any expulsions, any of those things,
Correct.
and special education costs associated with those.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I know we had talked about it before, and I wanted to follow up and where.
Absolutely.
I knew you had done some
We did do some
exploration
research on that,
in
yes.
that, and wanted to follow up. Thank you.
So are you currently still under a freeze for certain expenses?
We are.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? Ms. Petrowski?
I just have one thing, and it's just a technical thing. On the uninsured coverage, can you just widen that last column so we can see the number instead of asterisks?
Sure. I'm gonna take a look at it.
Otherwise, I have to do math.
Oh, right. No, that's not the reason why it's.
So, I mean,
It's just a percentage, it's not critical, but
it's, yeah, so it's such a small percentage, because if you think about our original budget is 20,000. So when you throw a number like 213,000 into there,
Yeah.
you're looking at .0000.
Got it,
You know,
okay.
It would just be such a small number that it wouldn't really,
Oh, big number.
Big number.
well, yeah,
It's a big number.
but the decimal itself,
Right,
like
but-
0.000000.
rounded to
It's
zero,
way too much
whatever.
math for 9 o'clock at night.
Any other questions on
Or,
this?
well, I mean, or bigger, yeah, I'm sorry, I apologize, bigger. I apologize, it's late,
It
it's
is
late.
9 o'clock, so okay. But I know you've been up.
All right,
The
superintendent's
Lord
report is
made
done.
On that note.
All right, new business, Ms. Petrowski.
Motion that the Milford Board of Education accepts the partial roof replacement project at Joseph A. Ford High School, state project number 084-0216-RR, as 100% complete.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Durrell seconds. Any discussion? This is just the formality.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Consent agenda, Ms. Petrowski.
Motion that the Milford Board of Education approves consent agenda items, consideration of minutes for the March 11th, 2024 business meeting and March 25th, 2024 committee of the whole meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Board comment? Ms. Doyle?
Thank you. I want to say that I fully support the budget as it stands right now without the cut. Within that, one of the things I think which makes Milford so special are the programming that we have. It was so exciting to go to Electrify Milford 2 weeks ago when it was in district. And I will say that I was definitely overcome with emotion about how exciting it was to see those 7th and 8th graders on the sing, dance, and be part of a community, and to have the community support them. Those types of opportunities come from investing in our school district. And I think when I list here and sit and listen to the students of Jonathan Law and Foreign come forward and talk about things that they are student-led initiatives. The kickball tournament, the decon, becoming the lieutenant governor again for the Key Club, the National Honor Society Brain Bowl, that's led by students. Model UN is a student-led program with the assistance of teachers. Future Business Leaders, the TLC space for for groups and programming, part of our goal of having programming spaces. The elected fair for students for middle school, these are all student-led things that want to be part of it, or giving tables and helping and giving back to who we are as part of a community. I think about other things of the ways and energy showcase of our curriculum at all the schools across the district. All of that comes from programming and spending money and focusing on what we're doing to make system improvements long-term. And so it's really hard to sit and listen to a list of $1.3 million deferments when we're talking about cameras to make sure that we're school safety, and we're talking about specialized ed programming or putting in new school textbooks. These are things that are so important to what we're doing every day that we've deferred so much long-term that we're gonna have issues. And it's hard to say, let's defer, let's defer, let's defer. There's a time when there's no more deferment in my mind. So we'll have to do what decisions we need to make in the future, but at this point, I still fully stand by our Board of Education that we passed a few months ago. And I look forward to the dialogue. I wish we didn't have to have it each year, but that's what it'll be.
Any other board comment? Ms. Mahler?
So in thinking about the budget conversation that we just had and looking at the potential list of things that we could be considering as part of the reduction in the deferments and all of that, I'm going back to some of the conversations that we had back in January when we were first going through this, and we were first talking about what the budget is and what it means and where it comes from and what it's built on. And it's not a spreadsheet, it's not numbers. The people who work in the district aren't little tick marks in a box somewhere. The kids who go here aren't little tick marks in a different box and percentages of who does what and who takes what class and goes where. The budget is representative of not just the programming that we put in place for our students, but the reasons and the belief and the vision for what the future should be for our kids that is reflected in those programming decisions and is reflected in the budget that pays for those programming decisions and pays for all the infrastructure that not just keeps them safe while they're here, but actually helps them to learn, but also to thrive. And also make Milford the kind of place that we live and that we have brought our families and that we are raising our children in and that our neighbors are raising their children in and that our business leaders are hoping will bring other business leaders to our town because they also want to live here and bring their workers here and have them raise their families here. We heard from someone tonight who moved to Milford because of the education system. And that is not the only person who has said that and who has done that and who has believed in that. And it's because not of a budget in a single year. It's not because of a spreadsheet. It's because of a year over year over year decision to build and progress and develop and grow. And as Dr. Kataya said, to put big dreams on paper for our kids so that our kids can take those big dreams and put them in their lives. And that's what this budget has done. It's not just taking what we did last year and doing it again next year and maybe there's a little inflation in there somewhere. It's actually taking steps forward to expand opportunities and the future potential. It's these career pathways, as my colleagues were saying, it's what sets Milford apart. And it's not something that's a whim, and it's not something that we all need to get together and decide whether or not we agree with it every April, every year, because that's bull. That's not what happens. We've been having this conversation for months and years. And we support it on the board, and the boards before us have supported it, and the leadership in this district supports it, and the community supports it, and the families support it, and they have made that clear year after year. And we find ourselves yet again in a position where a handful of individuals have said, maybe not this year. So now we're all having to pretend like the conversation is starting again, and it's not. The support is not questionable, the support is not wavering, the support is not up in the air. The support is there, and now the only question that we have already answered here, because we support this budget that builds our children's future in the way that we all believe is the vision that is appropriate. The question now is, what will the rest of our municipal government do about it? Which vision, which future, which dreams for our kids are they going to support? Or are they just not going to support? And it's someone else's question. The ball is in someone else's court, and that's just the process. That's just the way it works. We have made very clear where we stand, and now there's other people who have to make it very clear where they stand. Many of them made it very clear during election season last year, fully supporting education, fully supporting the budget, fully supporting the Board of Ed. Well, now it's time for them to actually put their money where their mouth is, because it's not just a campaign slogan anymore. They have to step up and take action. And I'm curious to see how that plays out and who's willing to do that and who's not. Because we have made it very clear what we believe in here and the future for our children in this town that we support. And it's now time for someone else to step up and support that as well with actions, not just words.
Thank you. Any other board comment tonight? I'm not going to reiterate what my colleague said, but well said, so I agree. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Anybody opposed to adjourning at 9:07?